Hello and welcome to That's So Craven, your one-stop shop for all things Fulham. This is Dave and this is After Dark. And this week we're going to be looking back at Sunderland because we like to bask in the glory of the limited wins that we have. And we're going to be looking ahead to Spurs on Saturday evening. Joining me tonight, we've got none other than Monday's host or Sunday's host. Was it Sunday? Was it Monday? It was Sunday or Monday. And Mike Levy here from Fulham, Boston. He took the reins and man, he's a natural. He's an absolute natural, but we've managed to get him back on Thanksgiving, no less. So happy Thanksgiving, Mike.
Thank you so much. I learned from the best. And yeah, happy Thanksgiving to any American listeners out there. Any of you who are Canadian, your Thanksgiving is not the correct one and you should celebrate ours instead.
Yeah, fair enough. A little dig at the Canadians. I like it. And Mike, we've got Mike the Traveller as well, fresh from his travels, although he's not traveling as much at the moment because he's still got a broken leg. But he has managed to sort me out with one of his upcoming travels by getting me a ticket to West Ham away. So I'm looking forward to that one just after Christmas. And so, yeah, welcome to Mike.
Thank you. And welcome back to you as well, Dave, because obviously you've gone full Jamie Carragher and disappeared while we were on a bad run. And then all of a sudden turned up again. Now we won a game. So welcome back to you as well.
Yes, I have been on a bit of a hiatus while I moved house and sorted my life out. I haven't realised it's been over a month since I've last been on the show. So everyone will be gutted to see me back, but I am back and I'm back in the hot seat. And I'm just about to talk a load of bullshit about Fulham as well. So strap in. Thanks to everyone for joining us live tonight. And please just stick your comments and questions on the chat. If you're on YouTube or if you're on X, just post a comment. Or if you're in our Discord group, then you're the man. We love you. And woman. You're the woman too. We love you. Keep doing what you do. Keep posting on there. And we'll try and pick up those questions too. Right. So we better use these slides, which today have gone really small on everyone's screen. We can't figure out why. And Jack's not here. So we're just going to make do. First one, we're going to have a look back at Sunderland. And as I said, Mike did a fantastic job on Sunday hosting the post-game review. He didn't get to talk too much about it himself because, he's got to let the guests talk. But Mike, just tell us a little bit about how you're feeling now. A few days have passed. The home record. Come on, man. The home record is good this season.
I love the home record. It's also significantly better when I'm not attending the matches. So we got to take that as another big win. Maybe I just got to stay away and forego my annual trip this year. I'm still really, really happy with how we performed. It was great to see kind of all the different pieces of the team come together. I thought there were really no players dragging us down. I don't think we really had to carry anyone during that match. And I come out of that feeling really, really confident, even as we go into an away match. I have been seeing a lot of stuff about people saying Raul wasn't necessarily top of his game. I've rewatched some of the highlights, and while I won't say he's necessarily the star player of the match, I still can't say enough about his work rate. I can't say enough about that poacher's finish that he put in, and it'd be really interesting to see if he can continue that connection with the wingers as they come through, especially Chukwueze as he starts to get more and more playing time.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I mean, Marco Silva himself in his press conference today said it wasn't Raul's best game by any means, but he was happy for him to get the goal. I don't know if it's just me, but I was just a little bit frustrated with Raul during the international break. I mean, why does he have to play every friendly for Mexico? Can't he just have a word with the coach and just say, look, I'm going to skip this one out. I've got like a broken rib or hip or whatever it is wrong with him. I need a rest. Played too many games. Can I just be on the bench for this one? Or maybe not even in the squad. But no, he wants that goal record. He wants to prepare for the World Cup. And I do understand that. Mike, Saturday, just gone. Sunderland, how you feeling about that one?
Yeah, I mean, really happy with the performance compared to what we saw up at Everton a few weeks ago. Chalk and cheese, really. I was really worried after the Everton game, not because of the result, but just because it was such a timid performance from us, which was really out of character. So to win in the manner that we did against Sunderland was probably more pleasing than the actual result itself, because 1-0 flat at Sunderland, let's be brutally honest about that. I thought Sunderland themselves weren't as good as I was expecting them to be. Everyone can have an off day, of course they can, and for a newly promoted side, they've punched well above their weight this season. But I thought that we really asserted our dominance on the game from the start to the finish, really, and I was pleased for Raul as well. He spent most of the game getting wrestled by Dan Ballard, and he's a big lump, that guy. So that's not an easy feat when you're a striker up there by yourself and you've got three centre backs to deal with, and one of them just won't stay off of you. It's a really difficult challenge, and he toiled away and kind of got his rewards for persevering and making sure that he was in the box at the right moment. Lovely cross from Chukwueze as well. I think we were all pleased to see another exciting cameo from him. He looks a real boost to our sort of attacking prowess in that regard, and also as well from a bit of a traditionalist point of view, it was nice to see a left-footed winger on the left wing putting in a left-footed cross for a striker to attack. It's I'm all for sort of tactical tweaks and inverted wingers and all sorts of things, but sometimes a bit of old school, beat your man, get a cross in, actually does the job, and that was nice to see. So yeah, overall, really pleased with that.
Yeah, I think that was one of the most exciting takeaways was Chukwueze's performance. Every time we've seen him, actually, he's been really good. That's a second assist of the season as well, in very limited game time. Marco Silva said today that he's knocking on the door for a start. I have a feeling that might come sooner than later, purely because I don't think Kevin particularly had a terrible game, but he's still adapting. Clearly, he's going to need time. He's going to need our patience, and he's going to need a bit more coaching. I think that he missed a couple of chances where the ball got kind of stuck under his feet, and I think Chukwueze just looks a bit more ready to go. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him come into the team and maybe Kevin come out and build his confidence from the bench and bench roles, which I think he did really well when he came on against Newcastle, where I think he had a big impact. So yeah, really, really great to see. And it reminds me this season of those mid 2000 years where we just used to win at home every week and then lose away every week. And we might get 1 or 2 away game wins a season, but most of the time we would stay up purely on home form. Mike, does that ring true to you?
I don't know. I've heard a lot of talk about that, but I'll be honest. I think this is one of the side effects. We've been talking about it all season of not getting players in earlier, not getting them bedded in on time, that we eventually have to hit our form and have to hit our stride at some point. And the beginning of the season has been so weird we signed pretty much all of our signings outside of LeComte on the last day of the window. We then go into the season and have this really interesting start where we have to integrate players. We didn't necessarily know who was going to still be in the squad. We're still missing arguably our best player. And now you see all these players coming back from injury. The squad seems to be starting to gel a little bit. And with the way that the table is constructed right now, and now Marco's comments that Anthony Robinson might be back for the Christmas period, I think that we're starting to see potentially a turning point. It's 1 win, so I don't necessarily want to get too excited, but we're going to Spurs. We have a relatively good record against them recently, knock on wood. And I think that we are in place to set up or it's provided how we set up, we're in place to do a really exciting performance and potentially continue this stride and continue this momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mike, one thing I was going to mention to you, because after the Everton game 2 weeks ago, which, of course you travelled to, this is Michael Timbery, by the way, I'm directing this to, you said that was the worst performance under Marco Silva. And I thought as well, the players looked like they were lacking confidence that day, which was a big concern. And it had me worried about Saturday's game against Sunderland. How pleased are you that we managed to turn it around and, get a win and put in such a good performance after, bouncing back from such a bad one like that?
I think it was good that we didn't get physically dominated again, because Everton beat us up and bullied us. I mean, that was what was not good enough about that game. So Sunderland, who are a pretty physical and imposing side as well, I think it was pleasing that we were able to kind of, not succumb to that again. And Some of our bigger players, particularly in the defensive area, stepped up. I thought Bassey was really good in terms of covering a lot of ground in the way that we're seeing the tweak that Silva has done with Sessignon at left back opposed to Robinson kind of means that sometimes we're a little bit more exposed in that left back area when, on the transition, because Sessignon's playing really high up the pitch and in more inverted position. Bassey, I thought, did a really good job of just snuffing out any potential danger. We know that he's a big, strong athlete, but his confidence hasn't been great so far this season because he's had a few howlers, particularly up at Newcastle. I think he looked a bit more like his old self, and that really helped us just, kind of set our stall out and sustain attacks rather than letting Sunderland have large periods of possession or putting us under any real sort of threat. I think the thing that I found that was really pleasing was that not only did we keep a clean sheet, I never felt like at any point we looked like we were going to concede on Saturday, whereas sometimes, particularly when you're in the ground, you can kind of just feel it coming. And, going back to Everton a few weeks ago, it was like that goal that they got just before half time. It felt like it was coming because they were just bombarding us with, direct attack after direct attack. I think we nullified Sunderland from doing that to us. So that was really pleasing. And actually, just touching on our home record, I think it's 3 clean sheets at home now out of the 6 games that we've played. But if you factor in Brentford, we gave them their goal. Josh King literally passed it to them. The ref gave Man United their goal when he failed to notice Joao shove Muniz, I think it was. So actually, apart from the Arsenal game, the goals that we've conceded at home have kind of either been our own fault or an oversight. And actually, we look really good now. Okay, against, some of the lesser sides in the league, shall we say, whereas obviously our away form, we've played some of the better sides in the league. So maybe we'll have a bit of better luck on the road once we head into this upcoming period of fixtures against some of the less fancied teams, should we say?
Yeah, no, brilliant. Well, I completely agree, and I also think Anderson's had a bit to do with that too. I think his performances this season have been pretty good. He's probably a bit of a low key shout for player of the season so far. I think be interesting to see how if he keeps this up, where he gets to, and how many votes he gets at the end of the year. Okay, let's move on. I think before we got Tottenham Hotspurs to talk about, but before we do, midweek there was the under-21s played in the that weird cup we play in against first teams in the lower leagues, and apparently, according to Marco Silva, JKA wanted to play in the match, so they let him, and he scored. So okay, we lost the game 2-1. I don't know if you saw the goal. It was a pretty good finish. He kind of picked it up quite deep, beat a man with relatively easily, got into the box and tucked it away. Really nice finish. Mike Levy, for a player to kind of put himself forward for an under-21 game, what does that say about his character and I guess where he's at as a player at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's one of those really interesting things where, especially with strikers, they're confidence players, and he clearly needs game time. He clearly needs to get some momentum going. I think scoring that goal, especially the way he did it, it wasn't just a poacher's finish. He picks up the ball in a pocket of space, beats a man, and ends up scoring with a really decent finish. It's good to know that he has that in his locker. It's good to know that he wants to develop. You see this a lot of times actually in American sports where players who are coming back from injury will go to a lower level. In baseball, it's a triple or double A. It's a lower league that they can just play against not as strong competition, but they can either regain their confidence or see how they're doing and test an injury out before they actually get back on the field. And I think you're seeing something similar here with JKA. I think we also have to remember the kid's 18 years old. Like at the end of the day, that's pretty phenomenal. And beating up on players who are, a little bit older than you is impressive. The more I watch him, the more he gives me, and I used to call Muniz the baby giraffe, and he gives me young Muniz vibes. So I'm going to call him the baby deer, because I think he's a little bit of baby deer in him, that he's still figuring out how to use his body. He's still figuring out how to play at the pace of this game. Part of the reason he came to Fulham was to get game time in the kind of first team setup. I don't remember exactly what our buy clause would be to like trigger it and get him in permanently. There's definitely a player in there. I think we just all need to remember he's 18 years old, and how many 18-year-olds not named Marcus Rashford come in and take the Premier League by storm?
Yeah. Well, apparently, if I recall, I think it was rumored that his clause for his option basically with Fulham was somewhere in the region of about 12 to 14 million euros, which, is pretty low for an 18-year-old, I would say, that's coming from a top club. And Bayern too, they have if we were to take on that option, Bayern then get a buyback that can only be used in certain windows, which I believe means summer windows, and they would have to pay us, I think, 35 million euros. So when you heard how the deal was structured, it kind of made a lot of sense. But just the boy, Marco's, called it that he's not ready. Some people have been quite frustrated with that. I think I've verged on the side of Marco kind of knows best with these guys, in my opinion. And, if he's not quite ready and not the right profile, Marco needs to work with him a bit. Then unfortunately, as frustrating as it is when we've got injury problems, that's probably better for the player longer term. So that's kind of my view on it. Mike, what's yours? Timbry, sorry.
Yeah, so to be honest,
Traveller. I'm just going to call you Traveller in this.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thanks for that. Love it. Yeah.
You can just call me Yeehaw, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. To be honest, I'm not reading too much into how he performed in a friendly against the non-league side. I'm pleased that he wanted to play. That, footballers should want to play football. So good for him, and recognizing that he's probably not going to get many first team minutes. He needs to keep sharp by playing at whatever level he can. I think it's just, again, this whole situation just smacks of the way that the club do the transfer business. Because if Brighton had signed this kid, it'd be like, oh, great business. In 2 years' time, he'll be ready to, replace Danny Welbeck, and he'll be the next big thing in the Premier League. But because it's us, it just feels so haphazard and last minute. And oh shit, Marco needs a third player to play up front. That one he'll do. So I feel sorry for him because he's come into a situation where he wasn't the unanimous choice that the club and the management wanted. So he's been put in a bit of a situation that he probably wasn't expecting that's what wasn't sold to him. So, good luck to him. I hope he continues to get minutes, and if there's an opportunity arises for him in the first team, then great. And maybe he, as Mike said, he will improve and will become ready to become that player, but it's just not going to be right now. And you can kind of tell that the fact that Silva's talking about other options, if Raul's injured, that we might play like Wilson as a false nine or something, then that suggests that Kusiaseri is way down the pecking order, particularly in, the Premier League. He might get an appearance in the FA Cup if we get a lower league side at home, for example. But even then, I wouldn't bank on that.
I do think we have to remember, though, that if he was our player, we look at the other players who come through our youth academy, and yes, we're spoiled with the likes of Josh King, with Ryan Sess and Jan, with even the players who have left, the Harvey Elliots, the Fabio Carvalhos. He would probably be on loan right now. He would probably be doing what Luc de Fougerolles is doing and playing in some place like Belgium, away from the spotlight, away from kind of prying eyes, and just getting the opportunity to develop naturally as a player. And I think there is a piece to that where maybe we have to, and it's a little difficult, as you said, Traveller, in the sense that, look, he's here kind of as the third striker. You don't like that this is sticking? Well, sorry. I'm not going to talk about myself in the third person.
No, go for it.
At least not for right now. But I was going to say, like, at the end of the day, is he a player that you pick up for 12? That's not that expensive for youth players anymore. I feel bad for players like Lupalo Bai, who, probably are looking for their opportunity as well. We just saw Callum Osman go out. But at the same time, I think there's a really interesting piece here where could he be a player that we buy? He's a project, you stash him for a few years and you see what happens. The way we spend our transfer budget and some of the rumors with the new SCR rules, I'm not sure that's going to be as feasible anymore to kind of take that punt when we need the third striker. But at the same time, this kid needs game time. I don't think it's fair to throw him into a Premier League match, but he clearly has something.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's really encouraging. Good for him, putting himself forward for the game. And, he just needs minutes, doesn't he? And if he can find them there, then, take them. And if he keeps doing the business in that team, he puts pressure on Marco to include him in the squad.
Dave, let me ask you a question on this.
Yeah, please.
If we get to the end of the season
Yeah.
and we don't have the season we necessarily want, but it's not us in a relegation battle, if we're sitting somewhere between 12th and 14th, we've kept him on loan for the entirety of the year and we don't recall him. Do we give him a run of games at the end of the season once it's secured that we're going to stay in the league, but we're not going to have a shot in Europe? Or do we, because clearly at that point, we don't play Raul. And yes, we have Muniz, and we want to improve Muniz and potentially put him in the shop window. But is there an argument that we actually just play JKA for a run of 5 games at the end of the season if we're deep in a cup and also we're trying to see if this loan option is worth triggering?
Well, look, I mean, logically, the answer to that's yes. But I think previously, I haven't seen Marco offer players that opportunity when our season has started to kind of conclude before the last game. We haven't kind of integrated lots of youth players. I think there was criticism of him last season, putting Vinicius on the bench instead of Callum Osmond. Almost when Vinicius was out of contract. So I don't always trust Mark. I think he would always play a first team player first. Mike, what do you think? Timbury, the traveller.
Yeah, I agree. And also the each Premier League place is worth a certain amount of money.
That's true.
The club will not tolerate finishing 15th when we could have finished 12th. And, so even if the season in general is kind of, from a fan's perspective, gone or there's nothing to play for, I think it's the kind of thing where, as David said, the Silva's sort of reputation generally has been to play the strongest team possible. So in theory, yeah, I can understand the logic behind it. I just don't think we would see it in practice.
I'm just saying, even though we've said we've had a couple seasons that have quote unquote stalled out, we've always played for something, right? Our first season up, we were playing obviously to stay up. In the last 2, we've been chasing a record points tally. And that was very important to Marco, and it was very important to the club. But I don't know if we're going to be able to get, into the mid to high 50s in points this year. Maybe we will. But if we're sitting, comfortably again in the mid 40s, low 50s in points, and we're not going to get to that place, is that an opportunity? And I think you make a really good point, though, Traveller, in the sense that, sorry, I'm having way too much fun with this at this point,
Brilliant.
But each place is worth a certain amount. But at the same time, seeing if you have a real player in a guy like this and seeing if he's a real prospect that we should spend money on and potentially then have real sell-on value may outweigh the short-term benefits of finishing 13th or 12th as opposed to 15th.
Yeah,
sure. No, I do get that. I just think as well, the coaching staff see him in training every day. They'll probably be able to make their judgments on that rather than, if he gets half an hour, against Bournemouth or whoever we've got late in the season. So I can see the logic. It's probably us as a fan base probably want to see more of what he's got, because the stuff that, the club are obviously privy to, or the management are privy to, is mainly behind closed doors. But yeah, I think that's wishful thinking that we're going to see him get a run of game time at the end. But you never know. It might also depend on Silva's situation, whether he's hanging around or not.
Yeah, that's very true.
Absolutely. Right. Well, let's talk about Tottenham Hotspur coming up this Saturday evening or afternoon for those in Boston. On Saturday, they have a 3 p.m. kickoff. Is that what it will be for you guys?
I think it'll be 3 p.m., although I'm actually joining Fulham DC this weekend. We're going to be watching at Susie Q's in the DC area if anyone's around. But I will say it's coming right on the heels of college football, so I think the screens are going to be limited.
Oh yeah, you'll be tucked in the corner. Never mind. Just make more noise than the other guys in the bar. Yeah. Well, there's a few kind of stories heading into this one. Obviously, it's the first time we'll see Joao play against Fulham, which will be quite sad, I think, for some. including myself. And I think, it's another opportunity for Ryan Sessegnon to prove to Tottenham, he is a good player, and they were wrong to let him go and not give him opportunities. So I think there's a couple of narratives around players. I think there's a narrative around Spurs at the moment, and Thomas Frank already seems to be under a bit of pressure. I can't seem to shed a tear about that, but that does seem to be the case. And I don't know. It just if it wasn't Fulham, Dr. Fulham playing Spurs at home, you'd fancy an away team there at the moment, wouldn't you? Mike, is that the problem? Is it just us away from home at the moment that we've shown not enough recently to kind of give you any confidence that? And I'm issuing this to Mike Levy, yeehaw, and not the Traveller. Is this the kind of game where you think, it's there for the taking? There's points to be had, but geez, Fulham away at the moment are giving us no confidence whatsoever that we can get something out of this.
I feel like, very much pun intended, this is black and white when we're playing managers who are kind of on the cusp of the sack potentially. You get, on one hand, as you said, kind of Dr. Fulham that'll help, resuscitate anybody's season. We saw it already with Aston Villa this year, and they have shot up the table. I think they were as high as 4th at one point last week, like craziness. And then you see, again, Aston Villa, where we get their manager sacked, or Chelsea, where we get their manager sacked. And, or even Wolves, that's the other end. I think it'll really depend on the setup that we come out as. And I think we'll come on to this later, but I know Marco really, really loves that double pivot. We can't be doing that. Spurs are there to be gone after, and we need to be bright and excited and cutthroat and going for chances to win. I don't know about both of you. I'm not sure I would mind if we really went for the game, if we didn't come out with a win, so long as we were bright and we were going after it. And look, gives us the opportunity for at least a draw. But I would much prefer that than us just sitting in. I know we need the points, and I know we need to move up the table, but I don't want to see the double pivot shielding our back line. Our back line has proven that they can handle themselves. Let's go for a potentially wounded animal in Tottenham.
Yeah, I mean, they're just coming off the back of a pretty crazy Champions League game, which I watched last night, where they didn't have a lot of the ball, but were really quite, clinical in their opportunities, especially in the second half. But clearly showed as well that they've got some defensive issues at the same time. I think at home, where they've got more of the ball, that's where they've struggled to create. They've struggled, Simmons, who they've brought in, has really kind of not quite got to the level that they were hoping for yet. And, I think missing Solanke has been a huge blow for them. Richarlison's had a few moments of magic, but, it's been scarce. So Kudus has really been relying on him. And almost if you can shut him down, you've got a chance. Mike, I just want to show you the last 5 games with Tottenham, just on the screen here. If you've got a magnifying glass, you'll be able to see what they say. It's not been good, basically. There's some red on there. There's some yellow on there. I think the green win was away from home. So, it's not been a happy place, White Hart Lane. And I think there are some Spurs fans pretty furious about Thomas Frank, what he did against Arsenal last week when he thought Tottenham were a lower mid-table team and needed to go there and park the bus. That's not really what Spurs fans are going to accept in a derby, is it?
I think as well, it's Frank. It's not only just the system that he hasn't quite settled on. It's also that he doesn't quite seem set on what his preferred team is. Like he makes a lot of changes, it seems, for every game. And yeah, they've got some individual talents who are kind of, could win a match by themselves. I think, Mohamed Kudus is a hell of a player and is somebody who can, hurt any team in the league. So, it sort of seems like we're going to have to watch out for their individuals rather than anything that they do as a collective. Like, there's no sort of particular style of play that I can see that is going to, be an obvious threat for us. It's more just a case of, whether they can put things together that, their individual match winners can do something. I feel like because of their last two results, obviously both away from home against superior sides, they're going to look at this and think, we need to win this game, and they're going to come at us hard and fast early. If we can ride that out and we can try and get on the ball and dominate the ball, that crowd is ready to turn. And I think that if we're sensible in how we approach the game and play our game to our best, we can frustrate them and maybe start to sort of, really get, a hostile atmosphere against their own side, and maybe we can take advantage of that. But we need to be clinical as well. We were a bit wasteful on Saturday as well as we played. We're not going to have as many chances as that, you would think, this week. So if we get our opportunities, we need to make sure that we take them. But like Mike said, I'd like to see us go and be on the front foot, and there's a lot of talk about whether Lukic comes back in or not. I can see it happening. Do I want it to happen? No, I quite like what Iwobi's done when he's played in the middle of the park for us. And if we have one of our more dynamic wingers playing wide, that will give us opportunities, because Udogie and Porro do occasionally, or Spence do occasionally switch off and go walkabout, and that's where we can maybe get some real joy. But I think first and foremost, ride out that wave of attack, because that first 10, 15 minutes, they're going to be going for it and trying to get on the front foot themselves.
Traveler, you do know that we have two midfielders, so that we get to play at a time, right?
We don't have to
drop Iwobi to let Lukic play.
No, that's true. But I mean, I think Sanderberger played well last week, and I think that maybe he complements what we would need in an away game more, because his physical presence, I think Spurs are quite a big side. I think he would maybe, give us just a bit more, protection in front of a back four that would allow Iwobi to go playing. Whereas I think Lukic would probably start, get booked after 5 minutes, and then walk a tightrope for the rest of the game. So I don't know. I just don't think anybody warranted losing their place from last week in that midfield. So I don't think Lukic comes back in because of a bad performance from somebody else. We know that Silva likes to kind of, the shirt is yours to lose, rather than, bringing somebody back in for the sake of it. So, but yeah, thanks for the maths reminder there, Mike.
No problem. I'm just saying, and Dave, I'd love to get your thoughts actually on this. I feel like I'm kind of trying to steal your role a little bit, but I'm actually really curious, and I hear him cussing me out right now because he stayed on mute.
No, please go ahead.
I would love to see Lukic come in, set the tone. I actually think over the last year or two, he's gotten a lot better at playing on a yellow. And as big of a body as Berger is, I'm pretty sure I put out the challenge on Monday. I'm not sure for everybody who needs a reminder that I am willing to challenge ESR to the beep test. I actually think I might be able to jump higher than Sander Berger. And I mean specifically getting my feet higher off the ground, because that guy never jumps for all the things. For somebody who is 6'6", the amount of headers he wins is remarkably low. And I'm just saying, getting somebody like a Lukic in to start the game, set the tone, and then if we have a lead, having Berger to come in and almost play the TC role and control the game a little bit more with a little more physicality could be a good way to balance. Dave, I'm not sure what your thoughts are. Maybe Traveler's right, and I'm wrong. Everybody's
I'm with you, Levy. I'm with you, Levy. And in fact, I disagree with the Traveller on this. I think that Berger, I think his best performances this season have come at home, where we've had more of the ball. And he's helped control the game. I think away from home, he's been pretty poor most of the time. And I think Lukic is the kind of player that away from home, when you don't have as much of the ball, is better at breaking up play and getting stuck in. And like you, I think that he has played pretty well on a yellow card for the majority of the season. He's not as reckless when he's on a yellow card, but he does seem to be able to control it. He's not been sent off for Fulham, and this is a guy that snaps at ankles all game long. So, I think that I think Marco almost could, rotate them depending on the opposition. I'd love to see Marco, not just with Lukic and Berger, but generally rotate a little bit more depending on the opposition. You know, we saw it a little bit with Raul and Muniz last season. I think it could have been a bit more, if in honesty, but I'd just like to see when you've got players that offer slightly different things. You know, I'm not so fond on the meritocracy approach in that position. I'd like to see them switch in and switch out. And I'm kind of with you. The only thing I would say is that I'm not a fan of the double pivot either. Generally, I'm not a fan of it as our default. I think that having Iwobi in the middle, we've seen what he's done at home in the last couple of games, and that's obviously freed up another attacking player in Kevin to come in, and which is great. I do think there are times where you do need a double pivot, you know, certain games. And this might be one of them. And the only reason I'm saying that is Tottenham have struggled to break teams down. Okay. They don't like having the ball. They're a better counter-attacking team than they are a footballing side that creates lots and lots of chances. So if we're going to park in and counter-attack and take our opportunities scarcely, you almost want to be hard to break down, and maybe the double pivot's the right thing to do in that situation. And that gives us more off the bench as well later in the game if we have managed to frustrate them. So I'm not necessarily advocating that. I'm just saying it's a potential strategy that we could look at. And if you look at Spurs' games they've struggled in at home this year, that's kind of the formula teams have used.
I think just on that as well, Dave, it might depend on what Spurs play as their midfield, because they've tended to go with Bentancur and Palhinha in the league quite a lot, and that's a pretty physical, robust sort of midfield, but it's one that plays a bit deeper. If they bring in those high energy players like Sarr, like Bergvall, we might need a bit more mobility in there to kind of counter that. So that could be a factor as well. Just Mike as well, I want to say, if you're going to come over for this challenge to challenge Sander Berger for, to jump higher than him, ESR to do the beat test, please, can we also see you versus Issa Diop in an egg and spoon race?
So I have heard a lot about these. I think there's something we did as a little kid, but yeah, I'm down for any challenge. Let's go for it. So long as it's not who can dunk a basketball, because he's got me there every day of the week, and not a wrestling match against Bassi or Traore. Those are my only asks. Those are the only things that are off the table. I will say one last thing on the Spurs game. I'm going to go out on a limb here, because I'm so excited about this. And I was thinking about the last time we played Spurs, or the last couple we played Spurs. And the guy I really want to see off the bench, keep Berger on the bench if we have to. I want to see TC come back and roll back the years. I want to see him twinkle toes dance around Palhinha as he comes in for a hard challenge. I think one of the things that will be really beneficial is, yes, Spurs like to control the game, but especially at the end of the game to close things out. We saw TC last season, and again, different Spurs, different manager, also got a red card in the game. But that was just such a glorious moment that I have to see again. I really, really do. Wow, Dave really hates this opinion, by the way. If for those of you not watching, he is cussing me out and red in the face.
At least I'm not doing it live on air. It's all behind the scenes.
He's got more of a head of steam than TC against Spurs, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking back on that game we played against them last season. I remember being really disappointed we didn't win that. I had no faith in us going into that game, and I just thought the amount of chances we created. I remember Raul having a few chances in the first half. I thought we should have been ahead. And I remember even after we were down to 10 men, we nearly won the game really late. I can't quite remember. Was it Wilson?
I think it was like Wilson, yeah.
Yeah. Which would have been amazing. But we were in a slightly better place away from home then. And I guess that's my biggest worry going into Saturday. I've just not seen enough of us away from home. And given that Everton game, I just can't get that out of my head, how bad we were that day. So as I said, but at the start, I think it was any other team in the league at the moment would be really fancying themselves in this one. And we should be too. We shouldn't be afraid of them. I just don't have that little bit of confidence. And I'd love the team to, turn it on and prove me wrong and pick up some points that we weren't expected to pick up. And that would really kick off our season, I think, if we could do that. Traveller, in terms of your choices for starting the game, then give us, your team and how you would approach it.
To be honest, the only change I would probably like to see is Chukwueze for Kevin. I think that Chukwueze's probably earned a start with his performances off the bench. I thought Kevin, while I can't fault his work rate, I think he had quite a difficult afternoon on Saturday, just because the conditions sort of meant that, as I think we mentioned before, he got the ball stuck under his feet a few times, and he didn't quite seem as confident taking on his direct opponent as much. So maybe Chukwueze's warranted a start. Other than that, I would go with what we had last week. I think it was a good enough performance, but also one that I think can be defensively resolute enough to deal with what's coming at us from Spurs, because you've got to expect that they'll offer more going forward than Sunderland did.
100%. Any changes on that team, Levy?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, and I'm gonna be a little bit controversial here. I actually would. I kind of alluded to this before. I would like to see Lukic in place of Berger, and I actually want to see Kevin keep a starting spot here. And I think part of the reason I want to see that, we've seen this with a couple players so far. Let them build into the form. We've seen Chukwueze. He's already been hurt twice since he's gotten here. We don't exactly know what his fitness is, and I don't want to overexpose him again, especially against the side that's potentially very physical, like Spurs, for a full 90. I would love to see Marco bring him in earlier again, probably closer to like the 60th minute, and get him the full last half hour run through. I want to see Kevin frustrate people. I actually think as much as we talk about how great Chukwueze was, and he really, really was, I also I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about that. Kevin had that great breakaway opportunity that, yes, I wish he had finished it properly, but didn't. And he had a second one that got caught under his feet because of the water on the pitch. I thought he actually did not play an awful game. I thought he actually had moments that, in a vacuum, we would be happy if we had a new signing who was still getting bedded in, who had essentially gotten 2 shots on target in a very, very short period of time. So let's have him build off that. Let's have Chukwueze continue to build his form. I don't want to see Wilson dropped, obviously. I've been seeing calls for ESR to start over King, and that's blasphemy to me, especially after what we saw at Everton. Lukic would come in for Berger for me, just to add that physicality. And we could always swap Berger in, or as I said before, TC, and keep Kevin on the left.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, it's a tricky one. As I said before, I think that Marco will have had a look at the games that Spurs have struggled with, and I think he might adopt a more counter-attacking approach. I could see Lukic coming back in, and I think there'll be a lot of eyes rolled when people look at the team sheet and see that. I think if it wasn't just such a kind of topic at the moment, because of obviously we've struggled with both Berger and Lukic so far this season. I think if we'd have maybe given Iwobi more opportunities earlier this season, I think more people would be suggesting that this might be the game for the double pivot. I think it's just because we've got all so frustrated and only just now starting to see Iwobi in that position and seeing him perform well. We want to see more of it, and I'm absolutely part of that. But I just think maybe for this game it is the right call. I don't know. It's just my view, and we'll see how Marco thinks on Saturday.
So Dave,
yeah, go on, Mike. No, go for it, Mike.
I was going to say, one thing we talked about on Monday, and I would love to actually get both of you involved in this conversation, is we were talking a lot about Sessegnon and Bassi kind of on the left, and Sessegnon is a very, very different winger, or excuse me, fullback to Anthony Robinson. And when you look at the spaces he picks up, he actually, as Traveller said, picks up a more inverted spot in there, as opposed to kind of the outside, as opposed to somebody like Jedi who comes around. I think if we had Anthony Robinson, we could make the argument for the double pivot and Iwobi on the wing. I think the way that our attack is kind of developing this season, where Sessegnon picks up this inside space, the winger plays more on the outside, Bassi kind of almost playing like a sweeper a little bit, playing both center back and left back. I'd be a little nervous, actually, because that's allowed us to elongate the field, allowed us to counter a little bit more, attack with some pace, as opposed to having Sess, where all the wonderful things he does, he just does not have the same pace that somebody like an Anthony Robinson does, and allowing Kevin or Chukwueze, any of them, to spring the counterattack, as opposed to necessarily relying on Iwobi to kind of play in the same spots that Sess wants to. I think that's part of the big reason is it's more of an Anthony Robinson not being an option and being able to rotate that way, that I'm at least thinking, yeah, we need to keep Iwobi in the 8 right now. And whether you think that Berger's able to play that killer ball and spring the press, and he did it really well last weekend, whether you want Lukic's hard tackling, I think we are seeing the counterattacks really springing more from our wingers and not necessarily from the fullbacks who are more tucked in right now.
Yeah, no, fair points. Fair points. I guess there's one other player that we haven't spoke about who came on last week and put in a pretty good performance. He's actually Mr. Levy's favourite player. I don't know. I'm going to throw this to Traveller. What do you think? Do you think that ESR's knocking on the door for an opportunity?
Not for Saturday. I think King will retain his place. I would expect Smith Rowe to come on as a sub at some point. That seems to be the kind of stock substitution that we make regardless of how the game is going. Somewhere between 60 and 70 minutes, Smith Rowe for King. I think the thing to bear in mind as well with the general team selection is obviously we've got a midweek game against Man City at home. When we've had midweek fixtures, Silva does tend to sort of change things up, usually more for that midweek fixture. So I think some of the players we've kind of argued about whether they're going to start or not on Saturday are probably more likely to get a run out in midweek, where I could see us doing something quite different, where we might go back to our sort of that wing back system, and maybe, I don't know, Castagna comes in or Cuenca comes in, and one or two others with a more sort of counter-attacking approach.
This is for City next week.
For Man City, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the kind of game where I think maybe we might make a few more changes both to the system and personnel and try and play a more counter-attacking style to try and stifle City. Whereas I think Silva will probably go with his more favoured selection for Spurs with a more particular game plan in mind for Man City in the week. Either way, I don't think Smith Rowe starts either of those games, but he'll be coming on ready to go from side to side, beep, 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 and maybe just beat Mike in the runs. But I thought he made a decent impact on Saturday. I think that seems to be a role that is suitable for him right now, and he kind of tends to play with a bit more freedom when the game opens up. Whereas when he starts games, he's a bit safe and doesn't want to give the ball away, and then ends up not really impacting the game enough.
Fair points. Listen, I'm going to wrap up the Tottenham chat with predictions because Mr. Levy's got Thanksgiving dinner to cook, and so I want to try and keep the show under an hour tonight. Plus, we've got some questions from the Discord I want to get your views on. So let's start with the Traveller. What's your prediction for the game on Saturday evening?
I go for a repeat of last year, 1-1.
Sensible. Levy?
God, this hurts because I really was about to say 1-1, but I want to be a little bit different. I think we build on last week. I actually think it's going to be a Desmond 2-2. So let's go for that. And I will say, I think ESR is banging on the door for a start for Wobie's five-a-side team.
That'd be good to watch. I think, I'd love a draw. I'd take 0-0, another clean sheet. That'd be amazing. Can't see it away from home. I have to say, my head thinks that we're going to lose. I think that it could be one of those games, given what I've seen this year away from home. I just don't have that confidence in us. And I think that Spurs really need to win this. They do have players that can hurt us. Head says we lose kind of 2-1, something like that. And my heart says, let's get a draw. Let's get a draw. I just can't see a win, but a draw would be amazing to take a point.
I would love the strategic draw that keeps Frank in the job and kind of keeps that going. One thing we didn't talk about, and I would love to get your 2 cents on this really quickly, is Marco came in second place for the Tottenham job last year. He has 6 months left on his contract. Is there any concern that if we win and we look like we did against Sunderland, that Frank is out and my namesake goes and knocks down on the door and asks Marco if he's interested in coming over?
Do you know what? I think that would have been. I think that now that they've tried like a manager from a mid-table club and given them an opportunity, if it's not worked out and they sack Frank, in the coming weeks, I get the impression they'll try and get a bigger name in now. Someone that's more experienced at the kind of top level, European level. Than
They're going to steal Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah, hopefully. I don't know. I just get that impression. I think Marco might have missed his chance with Tottenham now. And I think if it doesn't work out with Frank, I don't think that plays into Marco too well. I think that, they were both at kind of similar level clubs. And obviously we're a much bigger club than Brentford, but we were performing around the same level. And just want to be really clear on that, just in case anyone was confused. Much bigger club, okay? Not that tiny little club with 5,000 core fans in Brentford that have overperformed. Fulham, big club, Premier League club, biggest stadium, all those things. So just be really clear about that. But we've been performing about the same level. And I think that if they've taken almost a bit of a gamble to an extent on a manager that's never been in, the top level, the top club, and not really thought about top levels of Europe, I don't think they would sack him and do it again. That would be my view. Traveller, what do you think?
I think Frank gets the season at least. And bear in mind, they're probably going to go through in the Champions League. I think the PSG game was the first one they'd lost. Is that right? I can't remember what the rest of their results are, but I think they're doing okay in the Champions League. They were such a kamikaze club last season that I think they maybe just want a bit of stability. And, a top half finish probably isn't awful for them. Their fans won't like it, but I don't know. Their fans haven't really liked anything since Pochettino. So, yeah.
Who knows? Okay, well, let's crack on then. Let's get a few questions from the Discord in. That was a good one, actually, Levy. I was going to try and raise that one myself, and I'd forgotten. So you read my mind and got the better of me. So let's start with, I think we've answered one of Skibby's already, which was about JKA asking to play for the under-21s. But he said, if today was deadline day, who would you want us to have already signed, about to sign? I want names, not just a number 8. I'll throw that to Levy.
That's tough because, I don't know about you. You've seen the links to names. I don't think Hayden Hackney is in the cards anymore, just with the way his club's performing. I saw a link to Yves Bissouma that I thought could be kind of interesting, but I'm not sure how he fits in Marco's system. And I keep saying this. I want to see somebody. I threw out this name actually a few weeks ago, and Dave, I think you sent out the stats, and it was really interesting. And I floated this through a couple American friends, and they were losing their minds over this. There's a player named Sebastian Berhalter who is playing in the MLS right now. He's playing for the U.S. national team. He's unfortunately the son of the former coach who was a giant head case, but he's actually really good on set pieces, really good at kind of continuing to move the play, being the metronome of the team. And he's done it pretty well at the U.S. national team system. And especially, again, thinking about where we are from a financial situation, I think that could be a pretty smart piece of business, especially since I don't think he's about 24, I believe. He's not somebody who needs to come into the team this season to absolutely compete and overtake an Iwobi, a Lukic, a Berger. It's more of a longer term rotational plan, even somebody who can pick up for TC's minutes next season. So I would say that would be the one I would kind of be most interested off the top of my head.
I think I'm not giving up on Hackney. I heard he really wanted a Premier League move, and there's no guarantees for Borough. I think we could get him. I also
Rob Lewis would agree with you, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Because
the other one
he just jumped, right?
Yeah, that's true. So the other one that I'm would be quite interested in, if Tammy Abraham was available, I think that would be a really interesting option, particularly with Raul out of contract in the summer. He's 28 years old, and if they need to sell, I think that'd be a good pickup So there you go. There's your name, Skibby. Timbry, anyone to add?
No,
Traveller. Sorry, I meant to say Traveller.
Okay, yeah. Well, we didn't know who you were talking about. Yeah. Yeah, no, to be honest, not really anything to add. I think if we're considering the question as in the January window, it's probably not going to be anything that's particularly inspiring. It's more likely summer that there'll be a bit of an overhaul where a few will move on and we'll need replacements. So I think in January I'm worried that we get like Ward-Prowse on loan or something in January. That's do you know what I mean? That's just such a typical like uninspiring signing, but it kind of is a square peg in a square hole that could sort of do a job. But that's about as far as I think we'll get in terms of exciting signings in January.
Yeah, I guess it will depend.
Maybe we just try to doom Wolves and we actually give them a bid for Andre right now and bring him in.
I mean, if they look like they're done, I wouldn't be adverse to throwing in a bid for Andre, Joao, Gomez, and Strand Larsen. But yeah, I can't see that happening.
Strand Larsen has looked so pedestrian this year. We don't need another passenger.
No, but I think it's because he's playing in a terrible side. Like, he was good last season. He was good for Celta Vigo. So I think there's a real player in there. He's really unlucky that he's not starting for Norway. I think there was talk as well about Sorloth wanting to come back to England because Atleti sort of Simeone just kind of, stifles the life out of his centre forwards. So that's one I wouldn't be against exploring in the summer.
We have a good history with loans and buying them later on, just saying.
Okay, so we've established it'll be Ward-Prowse and probably Nicholas Fulkrug from West Ham on some sort of loan.
Double loan, double. Yeah. We're gonna repeat what we did with Le Marchand and Seri and pay for them combined.
Except we're going to pay with Adama Traore, which is would be a small silver lining, I think. No offense, Adama. Okay, guys, good show. As I said, Levy's got Thanksgiving dinner to now cook up for the family and friends, and the traveller needs to go and rest his broken ankle. He wants to get back playing football soon, so he needs to go and rest. And and I've still got boxes to unpack in this house, so it's all kicking off here. And but it's been a good fun show. It's been great to talk Fulham tonight. I think everyone's kind of looking forward to Saturday. I think everyone thinks it's an intriguing game where there's an opportunity for Fulham if we can turn up and perform. So just want to thank everyone who's joined us on the chat tonight, and thank the Traveller and Levy for their input throughout the show. And did you say it was DC you're going to?
I will be in Fulham, DC. Yeah, I will be in Fulham, DC this weekend.
Shout out to those guys. Make sure that you bring the baby Guinnesses. I hope to be seeing pictures of those when we win at White Hart Lane. So
let's bring those around.
Bring them around. So once again, thanks again. Join the Discord and come on, you whites.